Chinese children's books contain vulgar words, causing public outrage. U.S. wants G7 to team up against Beijing's trade coercion. H3N8 detected in Guangdong, experts say it could create a worse pandemic than COVID. China's Clean Up Lhasa campaign, Tibetan street vendors targeted. Chinese blocked from knowing true Ukraine situation by pro-Russian media.
In recent years, children's books in China have been plagued by scandals. One parent in Baoding City, Hebei Province, recently discovered a children's book published by Beijing Children's Publishing House, containing a lot of vulgar words. This angered Chinese netizens. As China's Tencent reported on March 28th, Zhang in Baoding City, Hebei Province, posted on the internet. He said he found a lot of vulgar words in the children's book Meet the Strange Old Man he bought for his daughter, which was unacceptable. His video shows the book's cover, which is accused of having inappropriate words, said it was written by a winner of the Hans Christian Andersen Award, and it's described as having pure beauty and a heartwarming story, a famous classic fairy tale. The book also states it's a special book for lower-grade children, but according to Zhang, there are actually many vulgar words in the characters' dialogues. Zhang believes children may not understand the meaning of those vulgar words, but they can learn to say them. He questioned the publisher's lax censorship of books, which have a very bad effect on underage children. Although the book content is intended to educate children not to use profanity words, it should still be considered carefully. On March 29th, the involved publishing team responded that the book would be improved, and it was possibly due to typographical errors. According to Tencent, this is the author's way of writing, letting the children immerse themselves in the story, and know how much trouble it will bring if they say vulgar words. In response to this, Xiong Bingqi, president of the 21st Century Education Research Institute, told Tencent, as for teaching children not to swear, in fact, when children hear others swearing, or when they swear by themselves, parents will point out that it is wrong behavior, and they cannot say it. That is, the premise of not swearing is to define what swearing is. Xi Wangzhisheng cited some netizens as commenting, "First, teach children how to say vulgar words, then tell them they're not allowed to say those. What kind of logic is this? China should step up to control children's books, punish the law-violating publishers appropriately, cannot be lenient. Beijing publisher is too disgusting. How did it pass the assessment? Wasn't it reviewed?" Many netizens expressed they cannot accept these children's books, which are filled with such vulgar words. This is not education, but the children's destruction, which demands severe punishment.
Washington is urging the G7 alliance to collectively act to intervene in Beijing's trade coercion tactics against partners of the group. According to Nikkei Asia, the U.S. government is proposing some measures, including raising tariffs in advance to deter the Chinese Communist Party. Another is slashing duties from the affected country to improve shipments and balance the impact of the sanctions against China. Congress has already introduced the Countering China Economic Coercion Act, whereby the president can impose multiple countermeasures against Beijing's economic gameplay. But it views that a unilateral response won't do much compared to governments cooperating. Moreover, many countries are still highly dependent on China economically, whereas an alliance would have a better deterrent effect. For example, Australia's biggest trading partner in goods and services is China, representing about 30% of its global trade. China also makes up around 20% of total trade between Japan and South Korea, but China's trade with those three countries is less than 10% of its overall trade. The U.S. is envisioning a framework in which different countries can repay each other's losses from trade in urgency when China tries to hurt them economically. The report noted that the Biden administration seeks to prevent an economic war. The U.S. has recommended a joint step to counter CCP economic coercion in working level exchanges with G7 countries. It has also appealed for the topic to be on this year's gathering agenda. Reportedly, Washington will have detailed talks with this year's G7 chair, Japan, on the issue before the summit planned for May. It is looking for a joint strategy with Japan and European partners. Nikkei Asia commented that if countries join against Beijing's bullying behavior, they could take in the merits of engaging in more alliances in the Southern Hemisphere. As the publication argues, there are emerging nations in the region that are more susceptible to China's pressure. The group of 7 comprises of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, the US, and the EU. Guangdong CDC recently announced that Zhongshan City reported a case of H3N8 bird flu. Some scientists pointed out avian influenza viruses can potentially cause another new pandemic in humans. According to China's The Paper, Zhongshan City, Guangdong Province reported an H3N8 case on March 26. This case is a 56-year-old woman with a history of multiple myeloma and other underlying diseases. Before the disease developed, she had contact with poultry around her house. China CDC examined and tested her. She is positive for the H3N8 avian influenza virus. According to the report, Guangdong CDC directed Zhongshan City to conduct an epidemiological investigation, trace and manage close contacts, screen epidemic-related locations, spray disinfectants, etc. Currently, no abnormal conditions have been detected in her close contacts. Experts believe the woman's case is isolated and the risk of transmission is low at this stage. According to the 21st Century News, a recent study published in One Health journal by China's Fudan University and Australia's University of Sydney predicted that the next pandemic that will sweep humanity is probably caused by a new strain of influenza virus created in animals. Humans have very little immunity to this virus. The two countries' scientists reached this conclusion after analyzing animal influenza virus records for nearly 50 years. The report cited one of the researchers, Professor Michael Ward of the Sydney School of Veterinary Science, as saying, "We are recovering from the coronavirus pandemic now, but a flu virus that flares up and takes hold in humans has the potential to dwarf the impact from COVID-19 given the high mortality rates caused by some animal viruses." The report pointed out that the bird flu outbreaks have occurred in Europe, Japan, the US, and other regions since March of this year. Simultaneously, they appeared in Argentina, the world's 8th largest exporter of poultry products. Meanwhile, in late February, the Cambodian Ministry of Health announced 2 cases of H5N1, of which the second case was close to the first one. Researchers believe bird flu could be the source of the next pandemic. In addition, there are many subtypes of avian influenza, and birds are their natural hosts, which increases the possibility of avian flu becoming a zoonotic, spreads from animal to human disease. Regarding the potential for human-to-human transmission of avian influenza, Ward said, "The issue is whether a mutation within a subtype is going to be the one that suddenly gives a certain influenza virus the power to transmit person to person. The first barrier is getting into mammals. It's a big jump for a virus to go from birds into mammals, and then if it's transmitting quite well, there's a greater chance it will jump into humans." He said, "It's just a numbers game. Viruses jumping species is not a rare event, so it's likely a virus will eventually make that final jump to humans." Professor Ward said that when 2 different influenza virus subtypes affect the same host cell and their genetic material mixes to create a new virus, it has the potential to trigger a pandemic.
Since March 20th, China has launched the Clean Up Lhasa campaign in the Tibetan capital of about 560,000 residents. Local authorities are inspecting all street vendors in and around the region's most sacred and vital temple to Tibetans, Jokang Temple. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has stepped up video surveillance and checks on street vendors in the capital. In addition, they are banning Tibetan vendors from selling tsampa, a staple Tibetan food made from barley, shakampo, dried yak and sheep meat, and other edibles. Local CCP authorities allege that those vendors need proper food badges on these offerings. A Tibetan inside the area told Radio Free Asia that, although the CCP said the effort was to maintain the cleanliness of the city of Lhasa, people can see that only Tibetan traders are targeted under this program. Moreover, authorities prohibit hawkers from selling Tibetan song CDs and question them for no reason. The resident said, "This has caused so much trouble for Tibetans who make their living as street vendors." According to information on the Lhasa police website, nearly 30 street vendors have been interrogated, and inspections are ongoing. Another Tibetan source said, "Some of the street vendors continue to sell their stuff because this is their livelihood." Gyal Lo, a Tibetan academic and author of the 2021 book Social Structuration in Tibetan Society, Education, Society, and Spirituality, said, "Eventually, under all these campaigns, the CCP wants to eradicate or eliminate any place or business that caters to bring the Tibetan Brotherhood together." A Chinese lawyer in New York named Xiang Xiaoji hypothesized that one reason for the effort might be that the CCP wants to uphold its claim that it has enhanced Tibet's economic development because Lhasa is a major tourist destination. He told Radio Free Asia, "They don't want the tourists to see Tibetans on the street as vendors. They want to portray that Tibetans are living good and financially content lives."
Most mainland Chinese have a very different knowledge of the raging war in Ukraine compared to the rest of the world. According to Al Jazeera, Chinese media is still parroting Russian propaganda in a copy-and-paste manner so far into the assault. They haven't changed from referring to the attack as a special military operation, as Russian media calls it. 24-year-old Yu Ling Song, identified not by her real name, told the publication the version the Chinese community is allowed to know is too different from Western media that she became confused. She said, "I've given up trying to understand what is going on. When the invasion began, China's state media CCTV broadcasted that the U.S. financed germ weapons in Ukraine. They also claimed that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky had left Kyiv at the first Russian attack. In Chinese media, casualties' accusations in Bucha, a town close to Kyiv, are treated as fabricated." Xin Yilin from Shanghai said, "If you are able to look beyond the firewall, Chinese government's censorship apparatus, you see that the war is talked about very differently and reported on very differently in international and Western media." Brian Tang from Guangdong said he could hardly discuss the war with others as the Chinese media either scrubbed them entirely from the stories or delivered false ones. He said, "It means that you not only have different opinions, you have different realities." Amidst much hype, however, Tang said that Chinese community's opinion of Russia has somewhat changed. He said, "When Russia first attacked Ukraine, we all heard that the Russians were going to win very quickly because people thought that they were so strong and the Ukrainians were so weak. In Chinese, goose and Russia share a similar sound." Tang said that Russia's attack quickly became stuck and showed that the big goose was not so capable after all. It was actually a weak goose. He noted that Chinese people eventually just wanted the war to end. Lin from Shanghai said Chinese people had lost their fondness for Russia, even as Chinese censorship is ready to delete any critical online comment. She said they were expecting a short war and now no one knows how long it will last.